This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
I'm looking forward to a wonderful conversation today about truth, which is the topic that you had suggested.
Okay, so in the introduction, it always says that I was in 3 different denominations, and it is 3. Actually, it's 4, but one is split into 2, splitting hairs. But the thing is, not to change it. The thing is, I've been in 3 different denominations. I'm just putting it out there because it goes with the next part. And not only 3 different denominations, but I've always been like a comparative religions person, looking to connect the dots and all of that. And one of the things that is consistent throughout, when I think about throughout my whole career, aside from painting by the numbers that I was required to do to get paid.
Your supervisors must have had such a handful.
It was a mess. It was, I think they were so glad to see me go. But anyway, the one question, and I collect information that is meaningful to me aside from paint by the numbers. What am I really hearing? And the hunger or the desire. And as always, people are looking for the truth. Mm-hmm. What is true? And the, I don't know what kind of side of me, because I don't want to say sarcastic, but it's not sarcastic, but there's a side of me that says, like, what do you want to, why are you asking this question? Are you really going to follow it? Why are you asking? And then what are you really asking? And then again, I'll say to myself, well, what is your answer? Aside from the question that you're, what's your answer? And my answer is there is no one truth. It's what your subconscious rubber stamps. That's what you believe. It's what's true for you. Mm-hmm. So it feels like to me that people are looking for a truth that if they could find that and believe in it, there's going to be some kind of salvation in it. And I'm not talking about the weird salvation. I'm talking about there's got to be some magic and whatever have you in knowing now I know what the truth is and my life is going to suddenly be filled with glorious divine manifestations.
Well, that seems like a leap, but okay. Because
go ahead.
The ultimate truth, that's one of the things that I really love about New Thought, is that we start with the ultimate truth and then we work backwards from there. Mm-hmm. And the formula for practical prayer, this is the Practical Prayer Podcast. The first step in a practical prayer, there is only God. That one infinite power and presence is all there is. Everything is that divine presence expressed in its own way. And it doesn't matter what our creation story is. We've been over this once or twice, whether it's the scriptural one of in the beginning there was darkness and void, and God, which was not part of the darkness and void. So there was only God, said, let there be light, and then there was light. Mm-hmm. And that is the cause and effect, that conscious intention saying, let there be, and there being. And if our story is the one from physics of the Big Bang 14.2 billion years ago, in the beginning there was the singularity, one impossibly dense point that for whatever reason started expanding, exploding. It was the Big Bang. And nobody could hear anything because there was nothing to listen. But that's a whole different story. So it began expressing and unfolding and revealing itself, and through the process of evolution has turned into everything that exists in this manifest universe. All of the galaxies, all of the stars, all of the particles, all of the people, everything. The growth, the life, the unfoldment of love and consciousness and everything else is the one revealing itself in a different form. The reason the creation story to me is that important is because that's the truth. That is what we are. We have that origin story in common, and everything else is some variation or perspective or difference on that same origin story. So if you want a truth that we can all agree on, that's the one. There's not another story. Now, there's a whole bunch of interpretations about how it happened, whether this story is the true story or that story is the true story, whether the one that's written down in my sacred scripture is the true story, which means that yours is wrong, and all of the ways that the infinite has been individualizing itself through the history of time. We are all one, but we are all distinct and individual. You and I are both having this conversation right now, but we're having it from two completely different perspectives. I'm in Pennsylvania. You're in New Jersey. I've been on the life path that I've been on. You've been on the life path that you've been on. There's things that you've learned. There's things that I've learned. Some of them are in common. And even the ones that we have in common, we've experienced differently. And that's two people on a podcast who agree with each other. There's lots of people with different educations, different backgrounds, different perspectives that may have come to a different conclusion. But the conclusion is about what that one story has evolved into.
Exactly. And I think as I was listening to you speak about our story, where it started, we don't exactly know exactly where it started. We became aware of each other on Facebook a couple of years back, but it's probably started a good many years before that. And we talk about things and we agree about things. I'm not terribly sure how much we disagree with. I think we kind of see that you can look at things so many different ways. And for me, it's very easy for me not to be concerned about the truth. I'm just not, because it's so many different, it's as you said, spirit manifests or shares itself in so many different ways. So let's just use the term 1,000. Which one of those thousands of ways is the truth? It's so I can very easily look at that and say, doesn't matter to me. Whatever way you look at it is just as true as this or this. I'm good with that. But many are not good with that. And so I'm trying to figure out, what are you getting at? So if you're looking for a single truth to exclude everything else, then that gives you sort of you can be judgmental because you have the truth and there is none other.
Yeah, let me claim the truth so I can also have spiritual arrogance. Because if I'm right, then you're wrong. And now the game is on. And we're no longer talking about truth, we're talking about power.
Exactly. And so I'm saying, okay, let's get back to the question that I asked in the beginning. So why exactly do you want to know this?
And would you believe it if you did have the truth? And how squishy is it? So have you ever had the experience where you see something out of the corner of your eye and it registers that it's something strange, and then you look again and it's different? Which of those is true?
I don't know.
They're both true.
Yeah.
One was a quick impression, and what your mind interpreted was something different than you saw the second time that you looked. But it's not that it was bad, not that it was wrong. Maybe it was incomplete. Maybe there was additional detail that could be fleshed out. In the same way, two people walking, opposite directions down the street are seeing completely different things. And it's not like one of them has the truth and the other one is left behind. One of them's walking east. That's all there is to it.
So the important thing to me probably in this discussion is helping me even get to why I'm even asking a person, well, why do you really want to know it? Harmony is important to me. How we relate to each other is important to me, because you mentioned the difficulty in in our life experience, our social experience right now, social political experience right now. And for me, it is very important that our relationship with each other is good, so that we can share information minus the judgment and figure out what the heck to do going forward, that 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. But if there is this lens of judgment do you see what I mean? I'm not saying it very well, but if we're in a place of finding the truth, then we can be judgmental about the next person, which also means that we're not going to be walking in harmony with each other, which means also that we're not going to find that place of peace and solution.
Yep, or amen. And the answer is about 12 minutes. I was wondering how long it would take before I started talking about capitalization. So, and that is, that can be very important as we're talking about the big things, divine aspects. And truth is a big one of them. Love is another one. We'll go with truth. Something that is eternally and perpetually true, that divine God-level truth, is a capital T. And it is unchanging. And the little t truth, the lowercase truth, can be my truth or your truth or what somebody's testifying as they understand to be the truth. And those are equally real and powerful to each of us, but they're subject to change. So if you want an exercise in little t truth, then wait till something happens in the news. These days, it doesn't take very long. And then go watch the reports on it from a couple of different perspectives. And if you want two completely different perspectives, you can try CNN and Fox News. If you want to get a little crazier, you can have MSNBC and OAN. I mean, there are different people who are taking different views and perspectives on the truth. When they're both talking about the same story, the way that they're expressing the truth, little t truth about it, is completely different. They're coming at it from a different perspective. They want to make a different point. They're emphasizing different aspects of it and making this part be the hero and that part be the enemy. And that is all very much little t truth. And you can't get to big T truth going through any of that, because the fact of the matter is it's all love. There is one divine power and presence unfolding, and it's showing up as whatever this is. And in back of all of it, in back of all the stories and all the spin and all the people doing things unto other people, there is that truth. There's an opportunity for something to unfold, and that's what's happening. That's really boring. There's no drama in that.
I don't know that is boring. Maybe because I very openly tell people, listen, I'm a nerd. I'm incredibly boring. And to me, my boring is exciting. So, it's all on how you look at it. When you were talking about that, I was thinking, okay, so there's this truth behind all of these networks and people, and the truth is coming through all these different ways, and it's like purpose. You said there's something that could come out of all of this. So what in the world could that possibly be? And I'm not saying that I'm saying that in a kind of a curious way, because if there's something in the back, that one truth expressing itself in all these different news outlets or channels or whatever. So what is it that we need to pay attention to, or do we need to pay attention to everything?
We can pay attention to anything. We can try and pay attention to everything, and it may or may not work. And we've talked before about the second act. And the second act is the literary device where in the first act you meet the characters and kind of get the lay of the land. In the second act, something horrible happens, and there's a challenge or a difficulty or a problem that comes up, and everything is threatened. and is endangered. And then that sets up the third act where we can get to the resolution where the, quote, good guys can become victorious and the story continues to unfold that way. And sometimes it's dark and it's like all the good guys get killed. And that was the whole idea of the story. In any case, the structure is still there. And when we're in the middle of a second act, it's really difficult to see the big picture. We're longing for, the first act was so nice. Yeah, but it wasn't that interesting, and there wasn't any growth and transformation going on in the first act. So now we're in the second act, and that stuff is going on, and everything that we thought we knew is being questioned. So I bring this up because currently there is a measles outbreak in the United States, which is not the sort of thing that we're used to having in the United States. So you can look at that and say, how is this possibly that one love unfolding? How can you describe this as good? How can this be a good thing? Because you bring your judgment to it, and there's people who are ill, and there's children who are dying, and how can that be good? And we don't know what's in the third act. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's coming next. So being able to say, what's the truth here? Is the truth that it's good to have measles? Is the truth that it's not good to have measles? Is the truth that getting vaccinated from the measles is good or not getting vaccinated is good? And there's all sorts of different perspectives, and different people have a different orientation on what the truth is, and none of them has a capital T truth.
Mm-hmm. 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 I like the way that you framed it, with the first and second act. And if you really understand it, then you stand in the second act and you try to see what the possibilities are without judgment. That's tricky. That's really tricky because I'm using those news outlets that you talked about, right? Yep. I'm doing it because I don't stay updated on a daily basis, but I will go to each one, and I have a certain amount of time that I will allow myself to look at each one, collect the facts, and see what I think. And it didn't take long, right? I'm thinking, okay, so you're saying what you want, and you're saying what you want. I got to collect all of this and see what I can make out of it. And I could actually see some good. And I don't want anybody to know where I live because they might not. I don't want any problems. But I mean, if you could just be neutral for a second and, do my Mars thing, like stand back and look on Mars and say, okay, so now let me see. It's some negative stuff in there, hands down. Yep. But I can see some little stuff in there that we need to pay attention to. And I've looked at some things that I had ignored. And I thought, let me grab onto this and pay attention to this. Sorry it took this for me to pay attention to it, but I'm getting it. Okay. And Spirit, please don't let my ignorance hold anything up in terms of this stuff coming to a good conclusion. But yeah, I get it. I get it. And if we could hold back the emotional upheaval, because this is hot emotional stuff here.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot to ask.
That's the part that gets the most exciting, where there's emotional upheaval attached.
Yeah, and then there's the fear factor comes in. But you said something at the very beginning. It's like, okay, Spirit, God, whatever you call it, is in the background, and I look at the characteristics, attributes, or whatever of that one thing that's in charge of everything. If, let's just say God is good. If there is goodness always in God, then I seek to know the goodness in the midst of all of this ridiculousness. I wish it didn't have to be that way, but I'm just saying, like for my own sanity's sake, that's how I do it. If God is, then I need to be clear on what God is and then look for that isness in the current reality. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. We're going to take a break, and then I think we're going to talk about how truth and guidance fit together.
learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcione.
We're having a wonderful conversation about truth with a capital T and a little t, and being aware of the stuff that's going on in the world around us, like watching the first act and the second act, and then seeing how we can engage so that we are prepared and invite in the third act in a way that's going to bring some uplift and comfort and harmony and pleasantness.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasantness? That sounds light.
Peace, whatever, goodness. But when you describe it that way, okay, so we got to get out of the notion of first, second, and third act happens within the hour, like a show on television. This might take or a season, it's a short season, so they have like 3 or 4 episodes. This might take a tad bit longer, but this is just a personal thing. I don't think so. Because I look at human interaction and I'm saying, don't miss a trick. Don't get mixed up in all the crazy. Look at everything. And there's human interaction, psychology, the psychology of human behavior at its finest. That is also a factor in this as well.
Yep. I'd say don't make the assumption that if you just sit there and watch, it'll get better all on its own. And the phrase that I would bring up is Dark Ages, because those went on for a while. That was the second act that lasted quite a long time. And it's not necessarily something that's going to resolve itself this afternoon. But the process is always the same. When there is that truth, capital T truth available, and I'm completely admitting that not only is that my belief, but that's probably the reason that people are listening to this podcast. So they've bought in on that even just a little bit. And it's a reminder to get back to principle. There is only love. There is only that one divine power and presence revealing itself in all these different ways. So underneath, behind, between, inside of all of this stuff that can look so crappy, there's the opportunity for love to be unfolding. There's the opportunity for light to be shining. And the invitation for guidance, our willingness to turn away from the stuff that we see in the world around us and to let go of our perceived truth, little t, and open to an awareness of the big picture. And then invite in guidance on what's ours to do. What is mine to do? What is mine to surrender? Mm-hmm. And then allow the infinite to say, take this step. Mm-hmm. And then we have to have the personal willingness to actually take the step. But the guidance comes from the infinite. The participation comes from us. And then we get to do the process again and continue asking for guidance. And then eventually we're walking a path that's bringing more good into the world or into our lives or into this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to me, it's a beautiful process of life. We're just, it comes, this opportunity, not the crazy, but in different forms, it comes to us throughout our whole life. We get to do this over and over and over again. And it's exciting in a sense if you can just hold on to your emotions and the fear factor, which is the big one. If you can just get a grip on that and just see how this unfolds, because we were given the wonderful gift of freedom, free will, and all of that. And this is what happens with free will. So I would rather deal with this than have our free will denied, because I'm always free to keep pulling back the layers to see what's there and not be satisfied with, well, because if it was my way, I would do it this way. And I see this. Okay, well, Lawrence, you've done that, a few times. And let's face it, that is not a good place to stop.
Yep.
Let's keep looking. And it is painful sometimes, disheartening, but the fear, that's the biggie. Get a grip on that fear and take that to that place of stillness. Be still and know that I am God, and just say, listen, I'm handing up fear. Okay, I'm flat out afraid of what this means.
Mm-hmm.
What is mine to do in this moment? And that moment may be just to deal with your own specific fear. And then again and again and again, asking the same question over and over. And you see more. And
Yeah.
you become more. You become more.
Yeah. And the interesting part is that if you're going to do that practice for, let's say, 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot figure out on day 2 what day 30 is going to be like.
Right.
You got to actually walk the walk. You have to do the process. I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to ask for guidance. I'm going to be inspired to take a step. I'm going to take the step, and then I'm going to ask the question from a different perspective, because I'm not standing in the same place I was before.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective on the situation, my new truth, is from a different angle. And continue to repeat that process, and the stuff that is not relevant tends to fall away, and the stuff that continues to be present and is important gets elevated in our awareness of this is important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I say when I'm talking to anybody, their spirituality matures, just like the human, as we grow, we're 3 years old and we're 10, and they're on, and we mature. I was talking to somebody who I think is somewhere around 62, and they were saying, I can't believe I'm still learning. And I just kind of laughed, because I remember thinking at the last age that I thought it, which I'm not telling you what that was.
It was a little over 62.
It was over 62. And I thought, I can't believe that I thought you got to a certain age, you had it, and you just coast. It's like, no.
Nope.
No, it's no coasting. So you get that, and we talk about that exercise. And what I'm thinking is, it's spiritual maturity. It's I have not really a friend, but somebody that I watch on one of the social media networks, and he calls it high level conversation. And I just love that idea, because it's high level conversation, and it takes you must reach a certain place to even understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do that? Okay, so let's make this stretch, because I'm not going to talk to you about this other stuff. You got to make the leap.
Yeah.
Well, not even a leap, just a stretch.
Right. I mean, and this is not a brand new idea. There's this part in Scripture where they say, we put away childish things. Mm-hmm. All right, that was an interesting idea when you didn't have the sophistication that you have now, but you're stepping into something new. It's time to stop thinking that the things that you used to do are still going to work.
Yeah.
And that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. That, growth, transformation, ouch. That sounds like it's going to hurt. Maybe it will. Don't know until you try it, though.
But it's coming to terms with your growth, the growth process in spirituality, because in the traditional church, it's you do nothing, you wait on the Lord, right? See what the Lord is going to do. all right, you can do that. You'll probably be sitting there waiting. It's okay, like when you first started, because that's nice. You're getting used to the atmosphere. You're getting used to the lay of the land. But at some point, you can't just. Then there's the other side of it is let go and let God. I think you have to take all of these concepts and these ideas and match your maturity level with it. What is it saying in this moment? So it's no big T truth about this scripture is good for all time, all situations. Listen, take all the evidence to court. See what you, see what speaks. And that can be frightening too, a little bit.
Yeah, it can definitely be frightening because we don't know. We don't know what that bigger picture is. We do know that if we think that we have all the answers, we probably don't. And I will turn to another lovely metaphor, which is the metaphor of the pinball machine. He played pinball, and he pulled the plunger back, and the ball goes up, and it starts banging around, and he got the flippers, and you get to play. And some people are really nuanced at being able to shove the machine around just a little bit so it doesn't tilt, but they can get the ball to go where they want it to. Okay. Think for a second how preposterous it would be to plan out where the ball is going to go through one play. It's going to go up around there, then it's going to hit that bumper, then it's going to go over and hit that bumper, then back and forth between these three for 17 repeats, and then it's going to come down and it's going to hit this flipper, and then this flipper is going to shoot it back up over. And trying to figure it out ahead of time. I mean, as I'm describing this, and and you're remembering your days as a control freak where you would have tried to figure that out, and you can't do it because there are too many variables going on in the game. So what you have to do is actually play. As the human player, the thing you got to do is put in your quarter and pull the plunger back. At that point, something is going to happen. And it might be something that goes on for a while with a high score. It might be something that goes into, a goose egg really quickly. But you don't know until you try it. We can't figure it out. We don't know what it's going to be. The big T truth is that it's a pinball machine. The little T truth is the experience that I'm having while I'm playing this particular ball on the pinball machine. Or if I'm in a competition with somebody else, what score we get to by the end of the game. But that is entirely about personal perspective, and we can't control it going in, and we have to be engaged in the process. And if we try and analyze it and control it before we start, we'll never get started. And it's still a pinball machine, whether we put the quarter in or not.
Love that analogy. I really love that one. Because I'm thinking you said something that made me think like fear is big, and I always try to recognize that so that if I look at you and I'm saying, okay, so what is this person afraid of? It helps me go to the next level. Not ever even assuming that there is no fear. I assume that there is. And how about we trade fear just for a moment, like 60 seconds. Let's trade fear for the fascination. And the fascination would be how God Spirit might be moving in this scenario that will turn out for my good, not just mine, but others concerned. Now, the fair response that you might get is that, well, a lot of people are getting hurt. I get it. I don't like this. I'm looking for another way to respond to that. Unfortunately, there's collateral damage when change comes. That's very sad, and it's unfortunate. But change happens, and it happens the same way all the time, just like you talked about the drama. It's the same. And I don't know that you can avoid being the collateral damage. I don't know that you can. But perhaps change, just experiencing or embracing fascination for a moment might show you something that you might have missed. That might get you to another place to ask that other question that we talked about. What is the mind to do? It's yeah, I will never deny that there is fear involved, and I'll never make anybody feel that they should not be afraid. Examine, let's just say that this is frightening, and let's see where we go with this. Because our fear can't stop, should not allow our fear. Sorry, but the word should.
Well,
let's needn't allow the fear to cause us to stop. Let's move beyond it, with it, push past it, however you want to look at it, but not to allow it to paralyze us, because, that is that power of God that is within us.
Okay.
Right?
We're going to take another break. I've got one more insightful, pithy comment to make, and I'll actually let you say something afterwards if you go, no, wait a second. Because you were talking about collateral damage, and Gandhi was assassinated. So you could look at that and say, oh, collateral damage. India is free. So, yeah, maybe collateral damage, but maybe that's part of the entire process, and maybe that was worth it, because that was a while ago. He'd be dead by now anyhow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you want my comment now or when we come back?
No, now. We're going to do a prayer when we come back.
Okay. Well, I agree 100%. And I
That was easy.
I do. But and I should have said, at the risk of sounding awful and unfeeling and all that. But I also believe in the sacred contract. I believe in life purpose. And Gandhi is fine right now.
Yep.
And we are because of it. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, stand by. We're going to come back with a prayer from fear to fascination. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiotti. I so apologize. I got hung up in reading something that I don't need to be knowing that.
Truthful.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Something truthful. We've been talking about truth, capital T truth and little t truth, and different perspectives that we have on truth. And there's something, Carol, that you said earlier about being in a place of fear, and instead of running from it, to transform that into fascination. So there's something we're afraid of, and we want to fight it. We go into our reptile brain and we want to kill it and eat it. Or we run away from it. It's that fight or flight or fawn or whatever. And the evolved way that we can deal with something that we find to be fearful is to run toward it, is to have some fascination. Instead of saying, oh, this has happened, this is bad, I'm in danger, run away. To say, oh, this has happened, this is unexpected, this is uncomfortable, let me find out more about it. Now, if it's a raging house fire, you don't want to run into the fire to say, what's it like in here? But some fascination with the things that could happen, we're looking for a different balance point. Instead of running away and hiding our head in the sand and pretending it didn't happen, we can engage in the situation. First responders are all about this. For them, there's a house fire. Ooh, this is an opportunity for me to do my job. I know how to put out a house fire. I know how to save people who are stuck in a house that's on fire. and they get to come and work their craft. I have very little interest in being a first responder. I am tremendously grateful for the people who really get filled and fed by that. But the same thing is available to all of us. And that's the prayer today, is to, when we're experiencing fear, when something comes up and tells us this is a problem, this is a difficulty, this is different, this is unexpected, I'm not equipped to deal with it, to respond with that curiosity, with that fascination, with the notion of how could this be serving me? How can this be spurring me on to greater and deeper knowledge? And we don't have to do it by ourselves. The truth, capital T truth, is that there is one. And this is where the prayer is starting. There is one divine power and presence, one love, one source, one creator. And it doesn't matter what we call it. We can call it God. We can call it Jesus. We can call it Spirit. We can call it the Creator. We can call it the Big Bang. Whatever it is that we are calling it, that one is the divine source from which everything flows. Everything is that divine presence expressed in its own way. All of it evolving, unfolding, revealing, expressing, descending from that one divine essence into everything that exists now. So we are that oneness right here and right now. Each of us is an expression of that oneness. We are not the totality of that oneness. We are an aspect of that one divine love. So in situations where we are experiencing something that brings up fear or a desire to flee or concern or alarm, we can open to fascination about this new thing that is happening, this unexpected experience showing up in our lives, and invite it to inform us as to what new possibility is open. We can remind ourselves that there is only love unfolding. And if that's all there is, this must be love unfolding in some way as well. So that's the claim I'm making for each one. As we are faced with new or challenging situations, to respond with curiosity, to respond by leaning in, by opening to new possibilities, by working against muscle memory and thinking that the only response is to run away or to criticize or to judge or to demean or to do the things that we've always done. Newness is transformation. Opening to the truth, capital T, might mean releasing our perspective, what we considered to be the truth, little t, before, and seeing that there's something more. And in this manner, we are full-fledged participants in love unfolding. And that one infinite creative power, the one divine love and presence that shares itself as every part of its creation, is sharing itself as this newness now, as us, through us, for us, and with us. Good and more good is unfolding. The fascination is at hand. The fear is receding. The transformation is unfolding. And I'm grateful for it. And so with a deep feeling of thanks for this good already unfolding for each one listening to this prayer, I speak this word and release it into that creative law that always says yes. And I know it is once again saying yes. This good is underway now. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.